Thank you for having me here. So, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my story. Um, but first of all, I'm Natalia, and I'm the CEO, founder, artist, and writer of Killmonday Games. And I have released two successful games, and right now we have one in the making as well. And Killmonday Games was founded by me and my husband in 2012. So, about 10 years ago, I was working in the kitchen of a fast food restaurant, just like dreaming, of being able to create something meaningful. Um, so, to put you in perspective, I, I come from a small town from Chile called Quilpue, and my resources when I lived there were, enough to go to school and have a good food and, a beautiful small house. But I didn't really have the resources for culture or good schools, and good role models. And I think thanks to that absence, I learned very soon that I needed, that if I needed something or I wanted something, yeah, I had to get it myself. So I remember this dancing class that I really wanted to be part of when I was about 5 years old, and yeah, at the end, I couldn't be able to do it because my family couldn't afford it. So, but I saw that a few girls in the school went to this class, and that somehow hit me really hard. But I use my experiences, to make it work for me, and always with play, with play somehow. And I use my toys, and they became my audience, and I danced to them. And all of the sudden, I knew how to dance, and the more I did it, the more I felt comfortable doing it. And I can say that I'm a very good dancer. And I watch a lot of musicals, and I always, feeding myself with the information that I couldn't get from, these courses or stuff like that. But yeah, but I was always really envious, of the people at school who could go, for example, at art school after finishing high school, or somehow having some support from their parents to study something expensive. And I was like, mm, envious because I was afraid that I wasn't gonna um, get the monetary support that I needed from my family. And they never talked to me about it, and like I never asked about it. I never dare really. And yeah, but one day when I was about 17 years old, um, I had the chance to move to Sweden. Long story short, my mother fell in love with a Swedish guy in Chile, and then they moved to Sweden. Then 1 year later, my mother made it possible so I could move here also. And yes, I lived with my mother back then in Chile. Um, so I arrived to Sweden, and to this town, Upplands Väsby, and it was beautiful winter, but it really, really sucked so much because I didn't understand the language, and my mother was living like in a very small apartment. The thing keeps falling. uh, Apartment where I got to share, the room with my small sister and brother, and even my mother and her husband. So we were all living together in one room, so no privacy whatsoever. And yeah, and kind of, I understood that my biggest kind of work or job will be, maybe cleaning at hotels, or you know being a waitress, which was pretty cool for you know um, and but my dream, and always has been my dream, to be part of the arts of field the fields of art, sorry, and the technology and music. And the idea of being an art director was, or a director of movies, was always like present in my play when I was a child. um, yeah, but slowly I learned the language, I made friends, I managed to get into an animation school, and thanks to the student loan system in Sweden, I was able to afford my own studies. I also studied a few months of film and writing and some other experiences, and now 13 years later, I was releasing my first video game called Fran Bow, and I was married to this very tall Swedish man. And yes, and 2 years later, we released another game called Little Misfortune. So yeah, like we're now creating our third video game in 3D. The first two ones are in 2D, and we're a team of 14 people at the moment, and it's incredible. And more than 100 active fans around the globe, and we have like an honest but steady grow with everything, with the money we make and our community. So yes, and I really love the job that I do a lot because it's meaningful. It gives the meaning to my life. But yeah, the thing is, how did I get here? I was just a few years ago working, um, making salads in a restaurant. In a fast food restaurant. So back in 2012, my husband and I were like fantasizing about making our own games after we watched this documentary, Indie Game the Movie, which showed us that even from our homes with a computer and a programming program, we could, go a long way. And that's when we connected with the point and click adventure games, which our first two games are, yes, are that Henry. And yes, after that, a long period, of completely clueless. My husband and I were Googling everything, like very generic questions. First, like, what is a game and what is an indie game? And then you start to get more comfy with the workflow, and yeah, more information you get, you start realizing how to work, and yeah. And as I like to remind myself often, everything takes time and effort, and sorry. And after 5 months of studying, how to make a game with Isaac, we did like a few different short games we felt could be, interesting to experiment with, but nothing was successful because they never really were finished. So yeah, then talking back and forth, we remember this story that I had written a long time ago, um, and it was about this girl and her black cat. That can be connected to our first game, Fran Bow. And yes, Isaac loved the idea of doing something interactive, and as we really wanted to create an immersive narrative, and point and click was like the perfect formula to start experimenting with gameplay and storytelling. Um, so yes, we wanted to do the worlds we dreamed of, in reality, and we wanted them to be part of the people that were playing these games, and yes, also in a very personal level. Um, we started by building a simple mock-up of the game. We made a list of the components that we needed to see, make the characters walk, talk, and pick up elements in the scenario, and solve puzzles and explore. And yeah, there was like a lot to do. But when Isaac and I kind of broke down our big dream, you know big dream into small actions, things became easier to manage. When we needed to learn something new, we will just give all our attention to it, and until it was, understood and mastered, at least to a level that we could communicate, then it felt like right. And it was also very important to understand what we expected from each other. uh, so, like working in a team with a lot of communication. So communication is our code, and we need to communicate as clearly and straight to the point as possible. When misunderstandings arise, we tend to, pull back because we're afraid of conflict, or we tend to get angry because we're not in control of the situation. And instead of talking or communicating in a manner of which both can come into, a conversation about what's there's to deal with, we just prefer to not act, and time just drives you forward. Um, so yes, but I'm like really, really happy to have at least one person that cares as much uh, as I do, for what we're creating. And I'm like beyond humble if somebody tells me that they play the games we created. It is just too powerful, because I know how it feels to play games, and I play quite little because I spend a lot of time making them. But the few games that I play, they stayed with me in a very personal way. Maybe the moment that I share with the loved ones playing this game, or a moment for yourself and your thoughts, and also the sense of achievement playing the game. So I learned that. Yeah, after working the first year of developing Fran Bow, I will need a lot of motivation to finish this project because we are adding too much stuff, and it was headed to become a few years of development for the two of us. It was very, very a lot of information, and luckily the game started to get shaped with values and ideas which I'm fond of, as loyalty and bravery, and like to embrace all kinds of emotional statuses, so in your characters, so we can promote a healthy emotional intelligence, and how understanding about emotions we could grow beyond our expectations. But yeah, there's like always a big but. It's painful, because some feelings are not so fun. It requires a lot to go there when it hurts or when it's really annoying, and try to understand why you're going through those things. So self-discipline and openness to failure is so important to kind of achieve the dreams. uh, what happens when you fail? You learn a lesson, and the bigger the fail, kind of bigger the lesson. So it's going to hurt, but we learn something, and it's up to us, to use that information. uh, when when Isaac and I started to make our first game, we didn't have a budget. I mean, so we were working, yes, weekends and sometimes after work, some, to achieve some progress. And that's why Killmonday is called Killmonday, because we didn't want it to be Monday. Again, the game development time was over. So yes, after like 6 months of doing that, like working on weekends and after work, we had this pre-alpha of chapter 1. Sorry, my coffee machine is making some noises. I didn't thought about that at home. Yes, let them. The robots are taking over.
No problem, no problem.
Yes. Okay.
It's Sunday, coffee is much needed.
Yes. So yes, but after having the 6 months of developing the game, and we had this pre-alpha chapter one, and this game was gonna be about five chapters. I mean, not 5 months, and yes, but the pre-alpha chapter one was done, and it was ready, to be put up in a crowdfunding campaign. And we took Indiegogo back then because in Sweden there was not like Kickstarter, and yes, Indiegogo, it worked. So we had two plans, um, we succeeded, or we went back to normal, and kept fighting to create another little game in our free time, and both plans were good, So we were kind of, yeah, understanding things, and kind of understanding that everything can go wrong whenever, and you can fail, but always, going uh, to do a project with the determination that you will achieve your goals, that's kind of the motivation. That's kind of what get things going forward, because yes, I can go now, I will never achieve it, and know that it won't happen, because that's the most thing to happen. But yes, like I said in the beginning, the actions make the difference. So yes, and I also kind of grown to love the fact that I'm a little broken psychologically, and after being sexually abused and living with self-worth issues, it it makes me feel that I can now build a better future of myself instead, and that's kind of the approach that I have to life and the projects that I make. Everything that works can be just better for the better, and and leaving dreams a little bit aside. For my husband and I, one of the big reasons that we wanted to finish this game also was to be able to earn money and be able to work for ourselves, and that we have because we have very cool ideas that we wanted to create together, and yes, you need resources for that, and to have some kind of freedom, that allows you to enter in the periods of experimentation as a creative person, learning new stuff, becoming a little bit part of the story you're writing. You become this researcher of life and interaction, and to be able to later kind of design this game. So we need space to be able to let the imagination grow. So we knew that we needed to create something profitable, but at the same time personal, and that gave us, the opportunity to share our views of life through the storytelling. And that, of course, was a hard task. I played some video games, made list of the things I liked and things that I will like to improve, and of course those things that I wouldn't really have in my own game. Then applied those questions also to our own game. Do I get bored at some point? What's the point of the game? Do the characters communicate what they really need to the gamers so they can understand what you need to do? And you know did you double check it's working? Is it plugged in? You can have many questions, and yes, you have to ask yourself and try to not overthink your answer. I definitely overthink the decisions I take, but sometimes I'm only, in a loop and wasting my energy in nothing but random negative thoughts, that eats my brain alive. So, yes, you need to be kind of aware that not overthink that much. So, after 2 months of having the crowdfunding running, we reached the goal, and we were able to leave our jobs and start doing the game. Again, if it all went like bad with the game, we go back to normal and, work in whatever we found. I'm gonna fix this thing. Sorry if it sounds badly, but I think it's my space pants that make it very
Yeah,
difficult.
everything sounds perfect and looks great, so no worries.
um, so yeah, but this money that we got from the crowdfunding, of course, ended. Um, we had about mm, more of the half of the game maybe done, and yes, this money it wasn't there anymore, and we started to have this money crisis. And how are we going to keep doing this without struggling so much? And all of the sudden, Isaac's grandfather dies of old age and leaves Isaac, my husband, some money that will cover like 6 to 7 months of production. And of course, we were super sad of losing Isaac's grandfather. But now the motivation that we have with this money coming to us was even more great, like, okay, this money is very special. We need to make very good use of it. And then when those money were over, we had like very very little polishing to do, so we loaned from Isaac's family like 5,000 crowns to pay that month's bills, and yes, we were like having no money at all. So when we released the game, we had $200 or euros, I don't know, very little money to um, have, and we had no job to go back to or no back plans. The only thing that we had was our mothers and their houses. So yes, it was really tough, and but that also taught me so much to appreciate having the resources. um it could be money, it could be people helping you, or somebody that guides you with the resources are many, but I wouldn't like to go around worrying that uh, all the time, with money. It's it's very hard. So yeah, so that's why Isaac and I were always thinking about mixing things up. Create the game, we are proud and can stand for it, and yes, that's why we kind of question it, question us ourselves and the game all the time until it came really really polished. And I think that's why also it took so much time. But yeah, then the game was released, and Fran Bow was out there, then big content creator names were playing Fran Bow, and the community started to grow and grow, and we were seeing cosplay and art and everything like coming to us, and we had luck with many things after the release, and I'm very very thankful for the help from around the world, to spread our games. But I also think that none of this will be possible if Isaac and I had, stopped with this project when it got tough. And at the end, it's Isaac and mine world, that we created, and that many people around the world gather to share their art and cosplay and videos, and they have a lot of fun. But the reality is that because of my background, because of everything that I had been through and the self-worth issues, I couldn't see that like now how many years Frambo? It's released like 5 years ago I released that game, and like 2 weeks ago I kind of understood that that's the deal, that I created something and then it created something else, and it's really cool. But yeah, many years going with that self-doubt, and yes. uh, but yeah, it's like I wasn't owning my own game and my own work, so I keep questioning now, why I don't give myself a little bit of credit and allow myself to feel proud for the good job. And yes, I mean, I'm kind of a high school dropout, so look at me now. It's really cool. Um, anyway, so dreams are made of many parts. that they need to be aligned, so to speak, to be able to exist. So what do you do to achieve your dream is to kind of analyze your dream and cut them down into parts and see where you can start from. For example, Isaac and I started knowing nothing about how to make video games, but we did um, know about storytelling. Um, we did know about animation and art, about music and about acting. So we wouldn't like really start from zero when it came to the creative part. But that also shows how many things Isaac and I have failed before at making video games. So we tried a lot of things that we really couldn't make a living out of. So yeah, it's hard to be an artist. Or yes. So we started to, as knowing nothing about video games and how they are written and how they are produced, who does what, what are the roles, and so on. It's so much. And I mean, so now we're in this one step closer to the big dream, which is with Isaac to create the best video game in world history and be monetary independent, of course, and no money problems whatsoever, and even to be able to help other developers. That will be so amazing. And yes, but at the moment we are kind of monetary independent, and I hope that keeps in the future. It's quite, low budget still, but yeah, we're doing a third game, so that's amazing. Uh, and I'm very happy that I can, create something of value as it is profitable, and we can continue to create more games and expand, to other formats as comics and books and films and series, because I would love to see that. Those are all my failures from before. So yes, I need to go back. And yes, and Fran Bow and Little Misfortune both share the same universe, which is divided like into these by realities, and these realities explore how life and death works, how the social matters are dealt with, and how, young people can be easily manipulated, or how a misunderstood child can get lost in her own universe, you know uh, and with our new game we are going to have in mind the issues of confidence and the importance of teamwork, which is kind of what I'm learning now that our team also is growing. So yes, it's very personal. And I love to, explore the emotional design of our games. It is important to me as a writer to observe people, to listen about the stories and happiness in their lives as well. Um, I read I read a book called "Working with Emotional Intelligence" by Daniel Coleman, and it taught me, to pay more attention to my emotions and how they develop, especially the emotions that make one, very upset or extremely annoyed. And yeah, it also taught me a whole deal about our brains. So when I understood where my emotions came from, so I could easily, avoid the trigger by doing something else. But it also taught me, to understand how imperfect we all are, but how perfect we wish to be, this dream like form of us. And there is a bridge between our dreams and the one we are acting as. So yes, I feel like we can connect those. um, and we also got like hundreds of emails and fans thanking for the stories and the point of view the characters are sharing. So, and a while back I gave a talk at Narrascope, which is an adventure games event, and this was in at MIT establishments in USL. And a man from the audience came to say hi after the talk, and He told me that his son has schizophrenia, and that thanks to Fran Bow, our first game, they could, communicate better and somehow spend time together with the family. And those are the stories that motivate me, even more. It's kind of impossible to know how things will come out at the end, but you are always in control of your own actions. And whatever your dream is, as long as it doesn't hurt you or others around you, you should absolutely go for the dreams. And yes, they're also starting to appear more organizations with the main goal, of helping girls and women to create their game ideas. For example, Wings and the game Hers, girlsmakinggames.com, and yeah, many more for sure. So yes, and now I'm coming to my end, but I want to give you a list on how to make your dreams come true. And this is not just for video games, but you can, yes. Anyway, decide what you want to achieve is point one. Cut down the dream into small pieces. You have to shop it. Have in mind these steps might take several years, and even that many things can go wrong. Have it always with you. Be aware of your capabilities and oh, oh, and knowledge. This thing is falling. Yes, be aware of your capabilities and knowledge. Knowing is different from doing. Uh, be aware of testing several approaches until you are happy. To decide, okay, I'm just gonna give up, and or I'm gonna keep doing it. And you can learn or be inspired from almost any experience. So yes, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Natalia. It was wonderful.